Ladies and gentlemen, Psalms 34, 9 and 10 says, O fear the Lord, you his saints, for there is no want to those that fear him. The young lions do lack and suffer hunger, but they that seek the Lord shall not want any good thing. Let's talk some boxing here. So we're going to look at three fighters. Diego Corrales, the legendary Diego Corrales, whose life was cut short a little too soon. We're going to look at Ricky the Hitman Hatton. And then we're going to look at Saul Canelo Alvarez. And why? Because these three boxers have something in common. When they faced Floyd Mayweather Jr., they were undefeated fighters. And I want to just hammer a point home, because the last video I did, which was a couple weeks ago, I spoke a little bit about undefeated fighters, and I mentioned these three gentlemen as undefeated fighters, if you guys do recall. But I want to go a little deeper into who they were and how interesting it is that Floyd Mayweather would fight these particular opponents. Okay? Because there's a lot of things which make it sort of memorable and historic. So let's get into it. First one, Diego El Chico Corrales. As you can see, if you're looking here on his belt, Chico. Now, in this particular fight, which is a very memorable fight, if you want to really see something about classic boxing and just what boxing encapsulates, period, you should really go and watch this highly anticipated matchup between Jose Luis Castillo and Diego Corrales. No, Diego Corrales was not an undefeated fighter when he faced Jose Luis Castillo. This was after he faced Floyd Mayweather. But what makes it so very interesting is this is a fight for the #1 spot at lightweight in the world. At the time, Jose Luis Castillo was the lightweight champion. He was the lineal lightweight champion. He was the #1 lightweight in the world at the time, okay, when Diego Corrales faced him. And this fight is just one for the ages. It's filled with everything, twists, drama, everything. And I just advise you guys, if you haven't seen this fight, this is a fight you really want to go and watch, because it's one for the ages. It's everything that you want in a fight, to see in a fight. You got to see in this fight, okay? I'm not going to say any more about that. But Diego Corrales, before he faced Floyd Mayweather, he was an undefeated fighter. But for you guys to understand the impact of what I'm about to say, I'm actually going to try and show you what I mean by that. So Diego Corrales won his title against Roberto Garcia, also known as Robert Garcia, who is in charge of the Garcia gym. He is the coach, the trainer for Mikey Garcia and memorable guys like Marcos El Chino Maidana. Okay? And Diego Corrales, as you can see here, destroyed Robert Garcia. He destroyed him to be the IBF super featherweight champion. Okay? He became the IBF super featherweight champion, defeating an undefeated Roberto Garcia. Okay? At the time he beat Roberto Garcia, he was undefeated himself. And he had defended his title successfully a couple of times. And he was the IBF champion. And Diego Corrales destroyed him. He knocked him down multiple times. And then here, the fight ended right at this point here, where he knocked him completely out. Joe Cortez being the referee. Okay? He would go on a couple fights later to face Derek Gainer. And Derek Gainer, for those people who don't know, he was one of the friends of Roy Jones Jr. And he had a similar style to Roy Jones Jr. And he was a southpaw. Okay? And he faced up against Diego Corrales, who forced him to fight and cut him off from the ring. And as you can see here, Diego Corrales knocks his ass down. Remember, this guy's a southpaw, Derek Gainer. He's slick, he's skilled, and yet he got dropped. I mean, he got dropped, you see. Now, right after this drop here in the third round, he got dropped again, a second time. All right? Because Diego Corrales got power, and he's a great inside fighter. And he can fight a bit on the outside, but he usually walks his opponent down. So, Derek Gainer got dropped, okay? And then the next time he got dropped, just a couple seconds later, he was stopped, okay? Now, these two are very slick, skilled boxers. Derek Gainer becoming a world champion after this. And Roberto Garcia being a top contender, facing some really notable names in the division, like, for instance, Joel Casamayor. Now, for you guys to understand what I'm saying and put things in context, Floyd Mayweather Jr. had become world champion before Diego Corrales became world champion. And yet, Diego Corrales not only was more impactful, but he had faced better competition than Floyd Mayweather Jr. I said that in the last video. And so, at the end of the year 2000, going into 2001, Diego Corrales was the #1 super featherweight, also known as junior lightweight, in the world. You can see here the ratings for the junior lightweights in the years 2000s. And Diego Corrales was #1. I'm showing you these things so that you know what I'm talking about. I'm putting it in context because I want my point to be hammered home correctly. I don't want you having any mistaking what my point is, because it's a very important point. Okay, so you can see Diego Corrales ahead of Floyd Mayweather Jr., ahead of Joel Casimiro. That was another contemporary of the day. Okay, you can see Robert Garcia now way down at the bottom in the year 2000, because I think he beat Robert Garcia in the year 1990, either 8 or 1999. I can't remember which one. So he defeated Robert Garcia just a couple months after Floyd had defeated Gennaro Hernandez. All right, and as you can see in this listing, Diego Corrales was ahead of Floyd Mayweather Jr., which was his contemporary, Joel Casimiro, who was also another undefeated fighter at the time, Acelino Freitas, another undefeated fighter at the time, and world champion. Acelino Freitas was a world champion. I believe it was the WBO. Joel Casimiro was the WBA. Floyd Mayweather Jr. was the WBC. Diego Corrales was the IBF. And Steve Forbes, who was a former world champion, I think he got it the same year with Floyd. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the person who beat Steve Forbes, I believe, was Roberto Garcia. Robert Garcia beat Steve Forbes to become the IBF world champion. So he also beat a very good, fighter in Steve Forbes, who was a very good fighter. All right, so he was ahead of these guys, the top 5 guys, and Robert Garcia was way down below because he had been stopped. And I think he faced Joel Casimiro, I think the year after or something like that, and he was beaten by Joel Casimiro. He was trying to get a title again. I think he was stopped by him, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, I think he just was dropped. I think he wasn't stopped. I don't think so. So my point anyway is this: that at the end of the day, Diego Corrales was the #1 super featherweight in the world when Floyd Mayweather faced him. He was not just undefeated, okay? He wasn't just undefeated. Undefeated doesn't mean much. He was the best super featherweight in the world when Floyd Mayweather faced him. Let me say that again. He wasn't just undefeated. He was the best super featherweight in the world when Floyd Mayweather faced him. So when Floyd Mayweather faced his first undefeated fighter, that undefeated fighter was the best super featherweight in the world. You couldn't get it better than that. It wasn't just an undefeated fighter. It was the best fighter in his division. Let me emphasize that one more time. He did not just fight an undefeated fighter. Okay? He didn't just fight a good undefeated fighter. He fought the best super featherweight in his division, who just happened to be also undefeated. Okay, let's move on. Ricky the Hitman Hatton. Ricky the Hitman Hatton defeated Costa Tszyu. Costa Tszyu was the #1 super lightweight or junior welterweight in the world at the time. I'll get back to that in a minute. Now, after he defeated Costa Tszyu, and I mean he defeated Costa, I mean he beat his ass. That Costa Tszyu's corner threw in the towel and said, he's not coming out for the 10th round. So he went 9 rounds with him and beat his ass. I mean, really beat his ass, okay? Ricky Hatton then went on to face Carlos Mausa. For those of you who don't know I knocked his ass out, by the way. He knocked him out. I remember it was a left hook from hell, or was it a leaping right hook? I can't remember. It was a leaping right hook, I think. A leaping right hook from hell. It could have been a leaping left hook. I can't remember which one. But it was a hook. That's what I know. And he knocked him clean out. He didn't get back up. He was on the ground for a while. Ricky Hatton knocked him flat out. Now, for those of you who don't know who Carlos Mausa is, Carlos Mausa was the guy that faced Vivian Harris. Vivian Harris was the IBF world champion. He was undefeated at the time. Kind of like Diego Corrales facing Robert Garcia. Robert Garcia was undefeated at the time. And he stopped him. He stopped him. There he is. He's stopping him right there. Stopping his ass. Okay? And Vivian Harris was supposed to, they were trying to set up Vivian Harris to face Floyd Mayweather or Ricky Hatton. In this case, I think it was a fight so they could unify Ricky Hatton and Vivian Harris. Okay? I think, if I'm not mistaken, Costa Tszyu was the WBA, I think, world champion. And Vivian Harris was the IBF, another IBF world champion. Carlos Mosa came and whooped his ass. Upset the cart. And Vivian Harris is also, at one time, there was talks of him facing Floyd Mayweather. And I think they said he priced himself out or whatever. I don't know. But at the end of the day, this was in a weight division that Floyd Mayweather was in and Ricky Hatton was in. And Ricky Hatton, I mean, he stopped Carlos Mosa. Okay? I mean, he emphatically put him to sleep. Okay? Ricky Hatton also defeated, he went up to the welterweight division and defeated Louis Collazo and did something nobody else did to Louis Collazo, which was at the time. Louis Collazo faced Shane Mosley. Louis Collazo was a bona fide welterweight, okay? He had beat Shane Mosley. He fought Shane Mosley. He fought Andre Berto. They were close fights. He could have gone either way. In this fight, Ricky Hatton knocks him down in the second round twice. Drops his ass twice in the fight. Fades a little bit late in the fight, and Louis Collazo really was getting his own. But Louis Collazo was a southpaw. Again, Diego Krause faced a southpaw in Derek Gainer. Ricky Hatton faces a southpaw in Louis Collazo at a higher weight class. I want you guys to understand. Ricky Hatton. Let me show you some stuff, man. Let me show you some stuff about Ricky Hatton, okay? So Costa Tszyu was the man all through the early 2000s, okay? Ricky Hatton faced Costa Tszyu in 2005. All right, Costa Tszyu was the man, okay? As you can see here, this would be the junior welterweight or super lightweight division, okay? And if you look here, Costa Tszyu was the man all up to 2004, okay? Beat everybody. Okay, you can see Vivian Harris there, Arturo Gatti, Floyd faced Gatti at the end of 2000. I think it was in 2005 he faced Arturo Gatti, beat the brakes off of him, right? Now, in 2005, Ricky Hatton faced Costa Tszyu, whooped his ass. And as you can clearly see, Ricky Hatton from 2005 all the way up to 2008 was the man of super lightweight or junior welterweight division. Okay? Ricky Hatton whooped ass. He was the number one super lightweight or junior welterweight in the world. When he faced Floyd Mayweather, he was the number one super lightweight. Now, there is a technicality to this, in that Ricky Hatton was the number one super lightweight. But Floyd Mayweather was a welterweight when he faced Ricky Hatton. But the thing about it is, when Ricky Hatton stepped up into welterweight, which was in 2006, I believe it was. 2006, Ricky Hatton, the year before he faced Floyd Mayweather, he had stepped up into welterweight and whooped Louis Collazo's ass. Louis Collazo had gotten the WBA title because Zab Judah was stripped of it, and Louis Collazo had to fight for it with somebody else for the vacant title, and he beat that person to get the welterweight title. Okay, Zab Judah had it, then he was beaten by Carlos Baltimore in 2006, I believe, January 2006. So that's how Ricky Hatton faced Louis Collazo in 2006 and beat his ass. And that's how Ricky Hatton got the title. But then he dropped the title, and Miguel Cotto took it up, fought for the vacant title. I think it was against Carlos Quintana at the time. And he knocked out Carlos Quintana to get the title. I mean, he brutalized Carlos Quintana. He knocked him down multiple times. You know what I'm saying? And he got the title. And Ricky Hatton beat Louis Collazo to get the title, and then he dropped it, and then he went back down to super lightweight or junior welterweight, whooped some more ass, and then went on to get back up to welterweight and challenge Floyd Mayweather, because Floyd Mayweather can make those lower weights. All right. So Ricky Hatton was an undefeated fighter, but he wasn't just any undefeated fighter. Okay, and by the way, Floyd Mayweather stepped up to welterweight, I think, at the end of 2005, if I'm not mistaken. Did he face Sean B. Mitchell in 2005, or was it 2006? I can't remember. I think it was 2005, because I think he faced Zab in 2006. So at the end of 2005, Floyd stepped up to welterweight. He had 2 welterweight fights and 1 super welterweight fight with Oscar De La Hoya before he faced Ricky Hatton, who was a big dude. He could have fought at welterweight, and he did. He fought at welterweight and he proved that he could fight at welterweight. So they fought at welterweight. But the point is, Floyd Mayweather faced the best super lightweight or junior welterweight in the world at the time. The best. When we're talking about undefeated fighters, he's facing the best in the world who just happened to be an undefeated fighter, who fought really good competition. We're talking Louis Collazo, who was a world champion, Carlos Mauso, who was a world champion, and of course, the immortal Costa Tszyu, who's a legend and a Hall of Famer. Okay, that's what Ricky Hatton beat. Now, after Floyd beat Ricky Hatton, on the other hand, unlike Jose Luis Castillo and Diego Corrales, his legacy went downhill. Okay, he didn't really fight no more world champions or nobody else. He was dominant in name at the super lightweight division, but he had gotten beaten. After he got beaten by Floyd, he was never the same. All right, so. But the thing about it is, Ricky Hatton's legacy is here. He was world champion. He was the lineal world champion, and he was the man of his division for 4 straight years. Even a year after Floyd had beaten him, he was still the man of his division. So for 4 straight years, so he wasn't no chump. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't no rollover. After Floyd beat him, there was a blueprint how to beat his ass, but he was no chump. You know, he was no rollover. This guy had been beating world champions. He had proven himself. He wasn't just about being an undefeated fighter and you got one sole name on your list when you get beat. You know what I'm saying? This guy was a seasoned dude, right? Same thing with Diego Corrales. He was a seasoned dude when Floyd faced him. In fact, he had actually more names on his list and he had more experience than Floyd had. All right? Floyd, the best thing other than Gennaro Hernandez was Angel Manfredi. And guess what? Diego Corrales ran through Angel Manfredi like he was a joke. Okay? And he had fought more guys in the super featherweight division than Floyd had, and more tougher competition than Floyd had in the super featherweight division. So I'm just saying. All right, let's go on. One more thing. We're looking at Canelo Alvarez now. Canelo Alvarez. You're going to see a trend here, so let's just keep it moving. Canelo Alvarez was already a champion when Floyd faced him. Not just a champion, but he was a unified champion. He had faced another champion in the WBA champion, Austin Trout, who had just defeated the champion at the time, which was Miguel Cotto, which was the WBA champion. He defeated him. So Canelo faced the WBA champion, Austin Trout, who was a slick southpaw. You see what I'm saying? You get the trend? Now Canelo won his title, a vacant title, I think it was, at welterweight. I think it was against Ricky Hatton's brother. It's just really crazy how this thing kind of is linked together. But he beat Ricky Hatton's brother to get the title. All right. But Ricky Hatton's brother wasn't undefeated. But he faced Austin Trout, was an undefeated fighter coming off a high. He had just beaten a legend in Miguel Cotto at super welterweight, and Canelo beat Austin Trout, dropping him in the fight. Okay, undefeated, skilled, slick southpaw, longer, taller, much more rangier, very good pedigree boxer, as we later seen with Austin Trout. And Canelo beat him. All right, I want to show you some other things about Canelo Alvarez. As of 2016, Canelo Alvarez is the following. He is lineal middleweight champion. Lineal middleweight champion. And on top of that, he's also the junior middleweight, #1 junior middleweight in the world. In fact, when Floyd Mayweather faced him, well, Floyd Mayweather was the #1 junior middleweight in the world because he had beaten Miguel Cotto before, and he hadn't been beaten by anybody in junior middleweight, so he was the #1 junior middleweight. But Saul Canelo Alvarez was the #1 junior middleweight other than Floyd Mayweather that Floyd Mayweather could face at junior middleweight, and he had the credentials to show it. He was the unified junior middleweight, WBA, WBC, super welterweight, or junior middleweight champion at the time when he faced Floyd Mayweather, with names on his list like former champions such as Shane Mosley. He had Carlos Quintana on his list. He had Kermit Cintron on his list. He had Alfonso Gomez on his list. He had a lot of experience from these crafty veterans. Okay. Plus, he had a lot of skills when he faced Floyd Mayweather. Plus, he had beaten an undefeated world champion who had just beat a legend in Miguel Cotto. And a sure Hall of Famer. Not to mention Shane Mosley being a sure Hall of Famer himself. This is what Canelo came to the table with. Okay? He wasn't no chump. He even beat Carlos Baldomir. Not that it mattered because Carlos Baldomir just won a fight. But I'm just saying, he had some names under his belt. And on top of that, he also proved himself by fighting a slick, skilled southpaw boxer who was fighting a close fight with Erislandy Lara. And almost everybody else except for Jarrett Hurd was just too big for him with his kind of style that he used. My point anyway is this. That you've seen, and I just spoke about, three of the undefeated fighters Floyd Mayweather faced. The only three undefeated fighters Floyd Mayweather faced. But when you look at the caliber of undefeated fighter Floyd Mayweather faced in all three of them, whether it's Canelo Alvarez we're talking about, whether it's Ricky Hatton we're talking about, okay, or whether it is Diego El Chico Corrales that we're talking about. Make no mistake. These guys were the very best in their respective divisions. Now, here's my challenge going out to any of you. Any of you. Name any other fighter in history. Any other fighter in history who faced three undefeated fighters who each were not only well proven, not only good, not only world champions, but the very best in their respective divisions. I challenge you on that. Find somebody who did that in the history of boxing. You guys want to talk about Floyd Mayweather? Oh, he didn't fight enough black undefeated fighters. Who cares about that? What I want to know is, if they're undefeated, were they the very best in their respective division? Were they the best? If they weren't the best, and I showed you by facts, I showed you they were the best. If they weren't the best, why would he be facing them? Y'all want to talk about, hey, he didn't face Joe Casamayor. But Joe Casamayor wasn't the best in his division. Diego Corrales was. He was better than Floyd. He faced Diego Corrales. Oh, he didn't face Paul Williams. Was Paul Williams ever the best welterweight in his division? Was he? Was he ever? You can't say nothing about Miguel Cotto because he faced Miguel Cotto. Antonio Margarita. Was Antonio Margarita ever the best in his division? Yeah, he was for a season before Shane Mosley tapped that ass. And guess who Floyd faced? Shane Mosley. But Antonio Margarita, he wasn't undefeated. So we can't even talk about Antonio Margarita. We got to talk about Paul Williams, right? But he wasn't the best in his division. Name another undefeated fighter Floyd was supposed to face. But he had to be the best in his division. Who? Go ahead and scope it out. Check. Scratch. Search. You will find none. All the undefeated fighters Floyd faced in his career were the very best in their divisions. The very best. And there never was an undefeated fighter Floyd faced or out there that Floyd didn't face that was the best in his division. In fact, if you really pay attention, Floyd faced all of the best in his respective divisions. And if he didn't face them, he faced the best who beat them. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Antonio Margarita. At a certain point in time, he was the best in his division because Miguel Cotto, he beat Miguel Cotto to become the number one welterweight in the world. Then up comes Shane Mosley and upsets the cart by beating his ass the very next fight. Shane Mosley's the number one welterweight in the world. Guess who Floyd fights? Shane Mosley. Guess what he does? Beats him. I'll give you another example. Miguel Cotto, he was the best welterweight in the world at a certain period in time. Yes, no doubt about that. Floyd was not in the game when Miguel Cotto was the best welterweight in the world. He didn't stay best welterweight in the world for very long because the very next fight, Antonio Margarito beat his ass. Margarito didn't stay the best in the world because the very next fight, Shane Mosley beat his ass. Shane Mosley didn't stay the best for long because at the very next fight, Floyd Mayweather beat his ass. Right. Miguel Cotto goes up to super welterweight. Becomes the best super welterweight in the world at the time. And the very, well actually, becomes the best super welterweight in the world. And I believe the very next fight, Floyd beats his ass to become the best super welterweight in the world. Now, my point being this, and of course Miguel Cotto goes on to become the best middleweight in the world and so on. At least lineal champion. But my point anyway is this. My point is, unless you are the best in the world, why is Floyd Mayweather facing you? He's the best. To be the best, you got to beat the best. So how can you be telling me about a Paul Williams fight when I got the best lightweight in the world, or the best super lightweight in the world, or the best welterweight in the world, or the best super welterweight in the world I can face? I face somebody better than you, bring more to the table, and bring more money to the table. Why would I go fighting you? People say, well, Muhammad Ali fought all comers. Yeah, but most of those guys, again, they weren't on Ali's level. Floyd Mayweather Jr. faced the very best. And the sooner you guys realize he was facing the best, is the more you will realize that all your arguments don't hold any weight whatsoever. Oh, he didn't face Joel Casamignola. No, he didn't face Joel Casamignola. He faced Diego Corrales, who beat Joel Casamignola. And Acelino Freitas. And Jose Luis Castillo. Okay? He wasn't no fluke. He was a legend. So if you really, really, really want to go there, did Joel Casamignola, and we're talking the best, right? Did Joel Casamignola beat Jose Luis Castillo? No. Did Acelino Freitas? No. Did he beat Diego Corrales? No. So who was the boss here? Diego Corrales got to win on all of them. Castillo don't got to win on all of them. Diego Corrales got to win on all of them. The only one that Diego Corrales don't have a win over is Floyd. Jose Luis Castillo, he got to win over Diego Corrales. Right? You got to win over Joel Casamignola. But he didn't face Acelino Freitas. Because Diego Corrales destroyed Acelino Freitas. Acelino Freitas didn't have a career after Diego Corrales was done with him. My point anyway is this. That when you look at the very best, and they prove themselves, you can see it. Right now, Canelo Alvarez is doing extremely well. Okay? Because that's just what it is. They're the best. It's not as these guys prove themselves. Not just in one weight class, but multiple. That's another thing I want to talk about. Canelo won championships in multiple weight classes against the very best in those weight classes. Diego Corrales, same thing. The proof is in the pudding. The only guy who was not able to do that was Ricky Hatton. He was not able to. He fell short with Floyd Mayweather, but he faced the best at super lightweight. He faced the best at welterweight, and the best broke him. Okay, so he never went any further. His career went downhill. But the other two, they're bona fide. Okay, if Diego Corrales didn't die, I'm sure he would have become welterweight champion as well. He was now acclimatized. He jumped up 2 weight classes to face Joshua Clottey, a big, strong welterweight, and he hung in there with him. You remember, this is a blown up lightweight guy. All right, I'm sure once he adjusted to the weight class of heavyweight, of welterweight, I'm sure he would have done some stuff up there. You know what I'm saying? Might even got in a rematch with Floyd. Canelo jumps up to middleweight, not 2 weight classes, just 1. And he wins not only the linear middleweight champion, but he faces a dude in Gennady Golovkin, who's an undefeated fighter. So 2 undefeated fighters he's faced now. And he gets a draw with him. I argue he beat his ass, but because he's small, he was small for the weight class. He gonna fill out. He gonna fill out, and he gonna get more into middleweight, and we'll see what happens in the rematch. I'm looking forward to the rematch, and I hope it's an immediate rematch. I don't want Canelo fighting nobody else. I want him to go straight at Gennady Golovkin while Gennady Golovkin's fresh. Beat him up, and he can move on to whoever else. You know what I'm saying? But my point being, these are not your run-of-the-mill undefeated fighters Floyd faced. He faced fighters who turned out to be legendary fighters. But they just happened to be undefeated as well. On that note, you guys have a great one.